Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast. Today, we have a treat, y'all. I think we talk so much about in the workplace negotiating your salary. And I think by now we all have a really good idea of what it takes to negotiate a salary. However, we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but our guest, Cinneah, not only are we talking about negotiating a salary, but we're also talking about what it takes in that job. What are you doing to get that salary, to keep that salary, to maximize it for the next job? I love on your tagline on Instagram. I have to read it. So if you don't follow her on the gram, it is helping 9-to-5 hotties earn more, build wealth, and travel, especially post-quarantine.
Yes.
Like, we want all the things.
All the things.
And we can have them, and you've shown that. We work together in financial services,
yes.
And I can't even remember like how we actually met. I'm assuming it was through the Black Engagement Network.
Definitely, yes.
And when you see, at least for me, I'm someone who I look in the workplace and I'm like, who's doing work and who's not half-stepping? Because I think I've probably said on the podcast before, I believe that mediocrity is contagious. And I don't like hanging out with people who are mediocre, like not working.
Yes.
I feel like I may think that I can like half step if I hang out with people who don't want to work.
Yeah.
So she was one of the folks who I was like, we need to keep in touch. And we've kind of kept in touch. Exactly. Yeah. I see you. You work, I work, we do good things. Yeah. Like, let's keep in touch. And we ran into each other a few weeks ago at CultureCon.
At CultureCon, yes.
And I was like, you got time? You got time next week to come on the podcast? And you're like, a bet.
Pull up on me.
Yes, exactly. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yes. Yeah. So I know I gave my introduction, but I want you to give your introduction of yourself, like the tell me about yourself interview question, and let us hear your receipts.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, everyone. This is Cinneah El-Amin. In my 9-to-5, I am a technical product manager in fintech. And I'm also the founder of Flynanced, where, as Kimberly mentioned, I'm helping 9-to-5 hotties earn more, build wealth so that they can do more of the things that they love, like travel. I'm an avid traveler. I've lived abroad, even though I'm based in New York City now. And throughout my short professional journey of about 5.5 years, I have grown my salary from $48,000 to well over $200,000 by negotiating often, job hopping often, and really continuing to build my skills at every role that I've had. I don't come from a background of money. I'm probably one of the first women in my family to have this kind of really aggressive career. So I'm super excited about not only showing other Black women, but also other young Black women how we can advocate for ourselves and create a lifestyle where our careers can supplement the lives that we want to live, not overtake our lives, right? So finding that balance, but also ensuring that you're getting what you deserve and what you're worth.
Was this the plan for you?
Absolutely not.
So when did it become the plan? Because you said in 5 years.
Yeah.
This is life-changing.
Definitely life-changing.
So when did it become the plan?
So I will say that when I graduated school and started working full-time, at our former employer, I realized early on that I could not imagine working till 65. But I didn't really have a blueprint, right? I don't come from a family where we talked about wealth, where we talked about any of these things. So I learned about financial independence first. Like, I was reading a lot. I was reading a lot of personal finance books, and this term FIRE kept popping up: financial independence, retire early. And, it kind of dawned on me that I was in a position to be able to follow that blueprint that other people were laying out, right? If you can be intentional about growing your salary and trying your best to save, at least 50% of that salary into investments, then you could actually retire early, right? So here I was, like 23 years old, being like, okay, I think I can do this. And that was really what then sparked all of this, right? For me to say, okay, at my current job, am I promotion ready? No, I'm not. Oh, you guys are saying I got to wait another 4.5 years to even get to the next level. I'm out, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what really started to give me that encouragement, that spark to say, how can I think holistically about my career, right? I think being so early in my career and having certain leaders, especially at that company, kind of tell me, the path to success looks like this. And if you don't follow this, like what are you doing? Right. Yeah. It's career suicide. Right. Yeah. I can remember people that told me, like, you shouldn't leave this job. Like, what are you doing? You're giving up all this brand equity, all these relationships. But I was thinking holistically about the life that I wanted, about the money that I wanted to make, about the financial goals that I had set for myself.
Yeah.
And I think all of that, just kind of every step along the way, I've kind of taken more things that have helped me see, like, okay, this is the path that I'm on. And in terms of being a creator, I would have never thought that I would be up here talking about
You're
money.
so transparent.
Talking about financial. And I'm so glad that you say that, because that's something I struggled with early on in my journey as a creator. Because I'm the first one to say that I'm not a person who is frugal. I've made plenty of money mistakes, and I carried a lot of shame before I started Flynanced around my money. So transparency was kind of my way of breaking through that imposter syndrome that I felt early on as a creator. And I think that's been the common thread throughout all of the work that I've done as a creator, even when I was sharing my debt-free journey, even as I've shared my numbers around how much I make in my career. And I think that's what the women in my community have come to see me and appreciate me for, is like, I'm gonna be straight with you, right? In my content, I'm gonna be straight with you, clear with you, right? Let's forget the corporate jargon. Let's be as direct as we can, because that's gonna lead to more money, more flexibility, and more fulfillment in our careers, which I think that's what we all want.
Oh, 100%. I think the only change I think I would say is that I don't even like to call it job hopping.
Okay. What do you call it?
I just say it's having a plan and being intentional about your career moves. Because
Period.
I think, yes, because job hopping has this connotation from the baby boomer generation, from older Gen Xers who are like, these millennials, these Gen Z, they can't keep no job. They don't want no job. They move in and just bang, bang, bang. I'm unhappy, get another job. I'm unhappy, get another job. And I think that connotation comes there. But in my career too, people ask how I got so high so fast and moved industries. It was because every 2 years, 3 years tops, I was like, I've mastered this job. I have asked for promotion, looked for more responsibilities, and if it was not available at where I wanted, I packed my things up and took it elsewhere. And I'm like, I think it's intentional in having a strategy for yourself.
Yes.
Not just, I think hopping, it just makes it sound like very, I don't like this. You don't give me no raise? Bye.
Yeah.
That's what, at least for me, I think it sounds like that. I think baby boomers immediately think that. They think every 2 years. But what you said is, you talked about gaining skills, about like, oh no, I mastered this. I got skills. I'm looking for the next thing. I think that's you having a plan for yourself.
Absolutely.
Not just hopping and skipping around. And that's why I just hate that term. It's a little pet peeve of mine.
No, I love that perspective. And I'm glad that you said that, because that is one thing that I'll be really clear with, that I have been really intentional, not only about the benchmarks that I wanted to hit in terms of this is the money that I want to make, but to your point, being intentional about what skills do I want to continue to gain so that I can remain competitive, right? Yeah. When I started my career and I work as a product manager, like I said, the discipline around product management was still very new in those days. This was like 2017. Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, how can I get really good at my job? You know, all right, now I'm kind of seeing I'm promoted in role. Okay, now I have more responsibility. What can I do next, right? I felt that I wanted a broader industry view, right? So that's kind of like what I thought about in terms of that next role, right? Now that I've been in financial services working on the issuer side, how can I get that exposure to another part of this financial ecosystem, right? Adding to my story, right? So that when I'm in interviews, I can tell this common thread that's linking all of these different moves together, right? Yeah. And then when I left that job at MasterCard into the job that I had now, I thought about how can I work on a product that's more digital focused, right? That's going to help me be able to bridge that gap between, I've worked at these traditional banks. How can I get closer to working in technology and some of the innovation? How can I show that gap, right? So I'm glad that you said that, because you're absolutely right. My experience job hopping, and why I think it's led to such significant increases in my raise is because I've been intentional about, one, making those really short jumps, right? I've mostly stayed in the same industry. Yes. And then continuing to diversify my skills with every role so that, you know, I could really tell this really robust story when I'm talking to employers or recruiters around how all these pivots fit. But I will be honest, and I get this question a lot. Like, people are like, well, how do you answer the question around like how you've moved so much? When you have those well-paid skills and those in-demand skills, you don't get asked that question. And I will say that I've had many interviews. Okay. I have had many interviews. I probably did dozens of interviews last year when I was moving into this job that I have now. And I never got asked a question, well, it looks like you move around so much. Why? Because I think I had strong brands on my resume that like, okay, you've worked for Fortune 500 companies. And I also can show that I've delivered value, right? I've launched multi-million-dollar products. This has been the impact of the products that I've launched. But also, like, I own my story, right? I'm not going into interviews saying, well, I don't really know why I'm here. Like, I know that I'm the prize. So if y'all don't see it, that's your loss, okay?
Oh, I love that. I love that. It comes with such Confidence. So let me ask the question. When you're thinking about your career right now, let's go back like even 2 roles, because you've been very intentional for a bit.
Yeah.
Do you know like what the 5 to 10 year plan is? Like, do you have a goal there that you're like, okay, I want to be here?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think 2 roles ago, I did not know.
Okay.
2 roles ago, I was a manager at American Express. And I think just the idea of me saying, I'm going to leave this company because I don't see a promotion in sight for me.
Yeah.
That was scary enough, right? And, if you know, working in a culture where there is a really pervasive narrative around like job security and job loyalty, kind of going against that and being really junior is so counterculture, right? Like it was almost unheard of. Like I was one of the first people to like leave our former employer before the pandemic, right? So I remember, again, just kind of being overwhelmed with a lot of people being encouraging, but also plenty of people saying like, what do you think you're doing? Like you'll be right back, or you're leaving for money, really? Like, like just all of these, I think, microaggressions that were also around, I think also being a young Black woman saying, how dare you have agency over your career, right? Like you haven't put in enough sweat equity to do what you're doing. And, I'm glad that I took those risks because one, I think I'm a lot more fulfilled. I realized that a lot of the toxicity that I, especially in that time in my career, thought was normal and commonplace in corporate was not.
Every place has its own culture.
Come on. And there are plenty of things that you might start to see normalize, right? Because you've worked in a certain environment, that's all you know. Then you go to another company and see, wait, actually, maybe that's not normal, right? So I think for me, it was just about like, how can I break away from just kind of this like one type of career that I've only known and see what else is out there. I wasn't really thinking about a 5 or 10 year plan. I really was just thinking about that next step and just kind of saying, okay, where can I land next that's going to help me feel like I'm growing my skills and getting what I'm worth?
I love that because I think there's 2 ways to think about career moves. I think it's when you like your job. I think that's the biggest part. It's like, okay, I like being in product.
Yeah.
I like this job. I'm enjoying this job. It's okay, my next move, I need to explore something else in this. I don't need to know the 10 year, but I want to explore the next facet to diversify my skill set. I think that's one way to make a job move. And I think the other way is like, okay, I know in 10 years I want to be here. So let me reverse engineer and get all the skills. I'm like, ultimately you could reach the same place.
Yeah.
But it's just how are you intentionally making that move? It's like, okay, I'm going to add this to my toolkit. I always talk to folks about like, what is your career toolkit? All the jobs that you've had, all the skills, all the experiences. I'm like, that's who you are. And you can take that anywhere.
Yes.
And I would also challenge to say, I'm like, if you decided you didn't want to work in fintech, you'd be just fine applying those skills someplace else.
Absolutely.
And I feel like you're like an old coaching client of mine, and I've never like this is probably the longest conversation we've ever had, if I'm very honest. Yeah, the longest.
Like, it was always like, I see you, sis. Like, I like what you're doing. Yeah. But no, I totally agree with you.
Exactly. I'm like all of the things that I teach my clients about building skill sets and being intentional about their career moves. The question I do have for you, which I don't know, is what do you feel the role of relationships has played in being able to navigate the world of work?
It's been huge. I mean, relationships are the reason why I'm here today. And I think that's also one thing that is sometimes not always understood when you see people that make those frequent and significant jumps like I have. It's because I've had people at the companies that I pivoted into who have essentially kind of gave me that helping hand, extended that olive branch for me to know the tangible things, right? Like how much do people actually make inside? So now I don't have to do the guesswork when I'm negotiating and trying to get in the door, but also being those people who can also kind of help amplify my brand inside the company, right? Like that was a huge thing for me, even leaving Amex to go to MasterCard. I had colleagues internal who were kind of, talking on the side to who was that person hiring me internally saying, yeah, she's a great colleague. I've worked with her and, if you trust me, then, she's going to be a great fit for your team. So I think relationships are a crucial piece of being able to grow your career that I think sometimes we don't talk enough about, right? That we all have such rich networks. And I can't tell you how many other young women I feel like I meet, and young people in general, who sometimes feel afraid of reaching out to those people. Oh, it's fine if you haven't talked to a person in a couple weeks, years. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to those people, especially if they're working at the companies that you want to work at, if they're working in the roles that you want, because they can just provide you such valuable insight and wisdom that can just help you significantly make the right moves that are, right for you. So it's been a game changer for me, right? It hasn't looked like me just like applying out in the whim. I would say this job that I have now in fintech is the first job that I ever applied outright for. Every other job that I've had in my career has come from relationships.
I think there's a balance too. I think when you have a great skill set, when you are able to present that great skill set, when you have a great pedigree, then sometimes it's easy to apply and people are like, oh, she worked boom, boom, boom. I want to have a phone conversation because that's very easy. But when you have the relationships, that gives you that extra like, let's the recruiter know, let me just give her a call. Because many of these companies, especially if you're looking to work in Fortune 100, 500 companies, when you pull the statistics, 'cause I used to work in diversity talent acquisition, it's harder to get into some of these companies than it is to get into Princeton, Harvard, Yale. When you look at the percentage of applications that come in and the amount of people who actually get to work at these companies, it is just as competitive as going to these schools. So you need someone who can just say, hey, I kind of know this person, even if it's like, okay, so we want the good referral, right? We want the, oh my gosh, I've worked with them. They're incredible. It's amazing. But if you can't get that, even just getting the, hey, like I used to work with this person. It looks like they have a really great track record. I think it's worth a phone conversation, but I don't know them like that. But definitely like, I think give them a call and see what happens. That can make such a difference of getting you in. It drives me crazy when people are looking to make career moves and they don't utilize their network. Even with this podcast, I always tell my producer, I'm like, so I'm going to ask so-and-so to be on a podcast, but I may not have talked to them since 3 years. Well, we have to take the pandemic out because I feel the pandemic doesn't really count.
That's what I was going to say.
So generally it would be like, oh, it was like 2 years ago. But if we add the pandemic in, it's like, I haven't really talked to them in like 5 years outside of like being on Instagram and being like, hey girl, or hey, that looks good. Like, but you never know what can help you expedite your success. I had an interview at a major tech company maybe back in 2016, 15, 16. And it was because of someone who I went to high school with who happened to be in recruitment. And I reached out like, hey, like I know we haven't talked since probably 2005. However, you've been at my house, you know my parents, like, can we talk to just catch up? And gave me an amazing referral. Made it to final rounds, got an offer, actually ended up not going because it just wasn't a fit for me at that time. But I probably wouldn't have gotten through the red tape to actually get the interview if it wasn't for that person just saying like, hey, I grew up with this person.
I love that.
They'd be good.
That's so important.
I love it. So I want to pivot a little bit more. When you're embarking upon a job search, what are the things you are looking for in the companies you're applying at?
Yeah. At this stage in my career, I am looking for really 3 things. And this is, again, based on my personal opinions, but I am looking for culture fit, right?
Okay.
I know a lot of what I don't want, right? Like
that's important.
I've worked at those companies and cultures where like I don't want that, right?
Yeah.
For example, what that can look like. I don't want to work in a company where my presence it has to speak more volumes than the work that I do, right? Like showing up, raising my hand, getting that FaceTime, like that stuff is not as important to me like anymore, right? Because I feel like I've done that. I've shown that in the work that I've been able to do, and I've been able to grow my brand because of it. But now it's exhausting, right, to kind of do that. 2, I am really looking for those opportunities to grow my career. So I think I am always looking at bigger companies where there might be lots of room to grow both laterally and also vertically, right? So for me, like I do better just at bigger companies where I can network across, I can join different employee resource groups, right? So that also opens me up to a certain type of company that I would look for. And I think 3 is around like compensation, especially. So at this stage in my career, now that I know that my skills are what they're worth, I'm not even taking phone screens for, roles that aren't paying more than what I currently make. And in addition, compensation also looks like, for me at this stage, getting equity in a company. It looks like having, stipends, other things that are gonna supplement my professional development more than just that base salary alone. So I want to feel like I'm also joining a company that's making an investment in me, not just in the money that they're paying me on that bi-weekly or, bi-monthly schedule, but also, can I be a shareholder in the company? Can you guys help subsidize me gaining other skills, getting, other certificates? Like those are the things that I'm looking for. So it's really those things that mean the most to me: culture fit, career opportunities, and comp.
I love that. And I think when you touched upon the career opportunities, I love that you also mentioned lateral and promotional, because I think when people are building their careers and they're thinking about salary, they think that you have to go up. And many times it is so much more beneficial to go across and then go up. Because one of my biggest things, I remember I was working on a team and I had a manager who was reporting to me as the director, and they wanted to really move into the director role. And they're like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I feel like that's what I want. I remember bringing out the chart of my organization and being like, okay, show me where your work is. Show me where this person's work is. Show me where this person's work is. I'm like, okay, well, where is my work? And they said, well, I know you do this by yourself, but isn't your work everybody's? And I said, yes. That is the difference. Before sometimes you can get the promotional roles, you need to have a good amount of experience. You don't need everything. Like if there's like 10 functional areas, maybe you got a good 5 or 6 out of 10. You don't have to have everything. But when we think about it from an employee perspective who's being managed by someone, you never want to work for the person who does not know your area. That is the worst feeling when you're like, I know more than my boss. But sometimes as the employee wanting to get promoted, we forget like, oh, I could do it. Just give me the chance. But you think about all those people who may be working below you. It's like, how do they respect you if they don't have the information? So I always talk to people when you're thinking like, what other knowledge do you need to make you an even more powerful leader? And you'll negotiate even more money. When you have more experience in all the areas you want to lead, that requires more money. So when we think about you starting a new role, what are you doing in the first 90 days? Because I feel like you probably have a plan of like, oh, because you're not trying to stay forever.
Right.
So what does that first 90 days look like?
Yeah, for me, it looks like, and this is really relevant because I just recently went through this. I think it's been really important for me to get a documented 30, 60, 90 plan in place with that person that's managing me, right?
Got it.
It can be a collaborative exercise, but I want them to tell me what success looks like in the role. But also, I want them to open up their Rolodex for me and tell me who are the people that I should be talking to, that I should be keeping a radar on, that I should be keeping, a regular cadence with, because as we know, so much of our career growth is not only the functional skills that we're getting, but also do the people that now are your new stakeholders know the work that you're bringing, right? How are you building your brand in those first days? So that has been super important for me. Also to get visibility to not only my manager, but the person above them, right? So I want them to kind of know like how my onboarding has been. If I have feedback around like, hey, I'm brand new to the team and here are things that are working well, here are things that are not working well.
Yes.
I want to also have that like open line of communication. Now I will say, this role is
I love it. I could feel it.
This role has been interesting because this is the first time that I have joined a team and in my first 90 days had major organizational change.
Got it.
So I think that's also something we got to...
It's the climate that we're in right now, though, too.
It's a climate that we're in. And I think it's also something that we have to be mindful about when we talk about making those intentional job pivots, is that sometimes you may land in a role where maybe you didn't get all of the knowledge and context around the politics of that team.
Yes.
And you might walk in and say, oh, wow, you guys, you sold me a Mercedes and you gave me a lemon, right? Like, so I think also like checking in with yourself around like, do I feel supported in this, like in these first 90 days, right? So that plan is great because it's giving you now a documented way to kind of assess where you are, creating that line of communication with your direct manager and that other person. But then it's also like important, and I've had to do this myself, like check in with myself around like, do I think I can withstand, like, is this change significant enough that I can withstand this? Like, do I want to stay?
Such a good question.
Right?
Like, do I want to be here?
Do I want to be here?
And see what it's like on the other side of the change.
Because we have to eliminate this idea that just because we accepted a new job, we can't put ourselves back out and search, right?
But what's the thing. People say like, you're not a tree. You can move.
You can move, right?
And I think that excellence in the workplace and a track record of success gives you more agency to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you've been hopping in the context that like I don't like to talk about, like literally just like you haven't even had a year tender, you haven't mastered any skills. Every job you go to, every company you go to, you don't like it and you move, you don't like it and you move. Yeah. There will come a time that I've seen for so many clients where it's like the universe just says, yeah, we're gonna make this move hard. We're not gonna let you get past phone screenings anymore. Yeah. You're not gonna get opportunities. Yeah. And I think it's deciding, do I get back out in the streets? Like, do I go out here and apply and find something more aligned? Or would this be something I can also add to my toolkit that I went through an organizational change? I went through this, and that's just more of a story that you could talk about that's going to help you later when you can go through those things. But it depends on so many things, people, culture, how you're impacted. Like I've had people who they've gotten new jobs and their senior stakeholder or their manager is the one who's left or gotten laid off and gone someplace else, changes their experience. And
that was me.
And that can significantly change and be like, you are the reason why I am here and you are no longer here. So it's like, okay, what is going to happen now? Because that completely changes your experience.
Completely changes your
And
experience.
it's a very personal choice. I don't think it's right or wrong whether you leave. It's like, what is your next plan?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know that's tough.
Yeah, no, it has been tough. It has been tough. And, you know, I understand the circumstances, even if I don't agree with how they went about it. Like, it was essentially like my manager retired at my 90-day mark. Like, at my 90-day mark.
I knew you was retired.
Exactly. So it was just like, it was kind of that. It was kind of that where it's kind of like, I kind of felt a bait and switched. And then it also just kind of, it so happened that then the manager above her, who was kind of helping me through this transition, who again was a part of my interview process, you know, had all this great brand equity, just got picked up and moved to another company. But they were a great leader, so I understand, right?
Yeah.
So I don't fault either one of them. But to your point, I had to make a decision for myself to say, I know how long it took me to get in this role. I do acknowledge that this is going to significantly change the direction of this role for me. But I made the decision for myself to say, I still feel supported by the other stakeholders that are here. I think we're all dealing with the fallout. So it's not just impacting me. It's actually all of these people are now kind of dealing with how do we regroup and rebuild. And I think I made the decision for myself that the benefits outweighed the costs. And to your point, it would make a great story in terms of how did I navigate significant organizational change and ambiguity, being completely new to an organization.
Do y'all hear the key words?
Come on.
Because that's what people ask you in interviews. Yes, like those are the key words there. Yeah, I have opinions about that, but I will reserve
many opinions. Yeah, we can talk about that off the record.
Yes, many opinions. But so on the other side, so we've talked about what you need to do. So I know I have a lot of folks in HR. I write for The Cut, and I have a lot of people when I respond to the employees. I think a lot of the managers come back, and those are the ones who send me the nasty emails when I tell people like, you're not a tree, you can move.
Then you know that you've hit on something that's key, right?
Yes. So for those folks, you are a high achieving professional with a bankable skill set. If someone said, I want to make you a lifer, like we need you here, you could be our chief product officer. What does this company need to do to keep you on the hook for, let's say 5 to 10, to have you say like, ooh, I will stay here?
Ooh, that is such a hard question. That's such a hard question.
And I want the ideal, like.
That is such a hard question. You know, I think in an ideal world, we talked about the 3 things that matter most to me at this stage. But I think if I would see myself growing with the company for 5 or 10 years, which like, it sounds crazy to even say it. Like, I think I have like conditioned myself to just think that like
2 years, I'm good. Yeah.
Or not even that like I'm keeping a date in the back of my mind, but like there are some things, right? So I think that now we start to talk about, is there a community here that I can really build and invest in, right? I will say one of the things that I loved about our former employer that I don't think I'll ever be able to recreate is just like, maybe it's trauma bonding, but the way that you could build, it has to be, right? Because like,
I think yes and no. Yes and no.
I still can't like put my finger on like, what was that recipe? But that would be something that I would need to see, like, right? I still feel so connected to the people that I met in those very first roles, right? We don't even have to talk for years. We can reconnect and it'll still feel like, you know, no, we didn't work on the same teams, but like just this shared identity connected us in a way that I feel like is unreplaceable, right?
Yes.
So I don't really know how to put that into words, but that would be something that I would need to feel in that company or in that role. Now, I am acknowledging that now being fully remote, I definitely feel like that relationship building piece is a lot harder. It's a lot harder, right? So yeah, I don't know how to articulate that, but that kind of feel would need to be important to me, right? That it's not now just about a job, but like, how can I feel like I'm building community so that I can continue to like mentor and support people coming up, but also that I feel like I am now connected with leaders that may look like me or may have similar interests to me, to just kind of feel like I'm kind of getting that intergenerational support, right, all around. I think that's important. I think the company's missions and values would then have to start to align to something that speaks to my passion, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've had that experience thus far, right? I pushed credit cards for most of my career. Yeah. So I think that's kind of always been a big disconnect. It's like, I could enjoy the work that I do, but am I passionate about like what the company overall is bringing to form? Maybe not. So maybe if I worked for a company that had a more altruistic mission or values that I feel like, wow, this is, not only helping shareholders get rich, but this is also helping, create greater good, then, I think that might be important. And then I think beyond that, I just feel like I am the type of person that like I bore easily. And I think that's probably why I've also been intentional about like, okay, what can I do next? Like, how can I get more skills, right? I love what you said around like, once you feel like you master that job, it's kind of like, now what? Yeah. So I think I would need to work in a company where there's opportunity for me to like flex and try out different hats. And that's probably part of the reason why I love product so much is because I get to wear all these different hats.
Yes.
And, work with all these different stakeholders without having to own their ish, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why I love product. So I think that would have to be something that was also a part of my career journey. Feeling like, can I wear multiple hats and continue to like stretch myself, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let me try something that I've never done before, right? I think that would be important. But yeah, that would be my ideal. It seems so far-fetched. I think that now, just
really?
Yeah, I think that now that I've kind of started being a creator and started my own business, I think I'm more excited about growing as my own founder. Like, I think that's my 5 to 10 year plan now is like, how can I grow and scale a business that I could become CEO of one day, right? And I think that is going to allow me to do those things I just kind of talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Bringing in, hiring a team of people that I feel connected to, being able to support a wider community of people where I feel like I am serving a greater good, right? Not just helping a company make money, though that's important, right? And then getting to wear a lot of different hats because if I own the damn thing, then it's like, hey, we're going to try this today. Yep. We're going to try to pivot into that, right? So I think that my 5 to 10 year plan has definitely morphed into looking like that. Like, I mean, I'm a 9 to 5 hottie now, but I won't be a 9 to 5 hottie forever, okay?
First of all, I think you just scared like every hiring manager who's listening to the call because I feel like there's such a call to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I think it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I think that it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
For companies to really compete with right now, and myself included. I left my corporate job last year, about a year and a half ago, and I was in tears. Huge. When I told my team, the first person I told, I cried. And she was like, "Am I the first person?" I was like, "Yes." I don't know what's happening because I loved my work. I loved my team. For me, there was an upward mobility in the way that I wanted to, and the time frame that I thought was. The time frame I thought was respectable for what I brought to the company.
That part.
Yeah, so that I knew it's like, okay, I could either go someplace. I didn't want to go someplace else because I love my work. I love my team. But then at the same time, my business has gotten to a level where I had to make a choice. My book was launching and I remember looking at my calendar and being like, there's not possible. Like I have to make a choice. Yeah. And I chose my company. Yeah. I think for the companies listening, I do think that, well, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, everyone does.
Yes.
And I would say that I'm also on the other side of that coin. Mm-hmm. I never aspired to be C-suite. So, I mean, I think that has probably always been in the back of my mind, even before I had a business, right? I didn't see myself being an entrepreneur, especially not this soon in my life. Yeah. But I never aspired to C-suite, right? Like,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think people think that we all want to be chief so-and-so.
Exactly.
And it's like, no, we all want to get to wherever we want to get to. But I think when you mention the 3 things of like growth opportunities, connected to the mission and vision, compensation, and the ability to try new things. I think for many folks who are toying with entrepreneurship is because they're not getting one of those things. And you would be able to retain talent longer as a company, especially if honestly compensation and the trying new things aligned. Like, and not just
is enough to keep high performers. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You will stay longer.
Absolutely.
If I had probably gotten promoted in my last year and promoted in role for the work and the scope that I had, I probably would have lasted at least another year. because I felt like I was compensated in my title and reflected what I was doing, the work I was currently doing. They probably would have had me for another year, even though they shouldn't have, because I would have burned out.
Yeah.
But I would have done it because I was so happy.
Yeah.
So as we think about entrepreneurship and building a business, because like I see you everywhere. I was like, oh, there she is. Oh, there she is. Again, like your content is so amazing. So I want to ask you a question. I hate asking women this question, but like you have a real job. Let's just call a spade a spade.
I do have a real job.
Yes. And I want to just take a minute to talk about that.
And I am not hiding. I'm the only Cinneah. So
yes.
it's real easy to
yes.
see what I'm talking about.
It's real easy to find you, so you are
out
there.
It's got to be in trouble for it. We can talk about that.
I'm sure. And I'm like, but you have a real job with real responsibilities. I think sometimes entrepreneurs, side hustlers, whatever you want to say, people are building a business and they don't have a real job. So like there's nobody calling them to get into a meeting.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of deadlines. Like they're really able to kind of work at their own pace.
Yeah.
But I remember like you transparently asked my team, like, hey, I got a call shortly after. Like, so you got a room I could go to? Like, because I got to hop on right quick after this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, bet not.
And I'm leading the call. So I was like, I can't just be like, oh. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have a real job and you're building it. So how are you doing both?
Not well most of the time.
Girl,
let's just
not well?
I mean, I will say not well in terms of I am at a stage now in my business and as a creator where I'm having to learn how to hire, how to delegate responsibilities. And that is something that just can't be like it's been hard for me to kind of figure that out, right? Like I am a creator and I think an educator first. The business woman, I feel like I'm evolving into. So when it comes to hiring and it comes to, thinking about opportunities to scale, that is where I have to lean on my business coach and other women in my network to kind of help me with, right? So I would say when it comes to balancing, I had to make the decision when I joined this team that like, from 9 to 5, I don't do any work related to my business, right? You don't see me on the gram all day long giving updates. I'm not showing you the work that I'm doing because, especially in today's day and age, right? Like I am not trying to go down for gross negligence because, and I'm seeing it happen, right? People are talking on TikTok like, oh, I got fired because I recorded part of a meeting and didn't know I was recording. Like I'm not gonna, you're not gonna catch me slipping like that,
Boundaries.
Right?
Boundaries.
Right, exactly. So I had to set those boundaries. So for me, it looks like I wake up early before I start my day. I am fully remote, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to be able to like make those changes. But like after 5 and on weekends, that's when I work, right? So the girls may see me outside, but I spend a lot of my time working on my business, creating content, working with my assistant and other people that help me on my team to kind of put the pieces together around all the things that I'm doing. So, we grind it hard. But I think for me, setting those boundaries has been critical because I would say all of 2021, I mostly felt burnt out because I was trying to do it all together. It was a lot, right? I was living in Tulum. I was trying to create content all day. I was trying to show people what it was like to live in Tulum and work a 9 to 5. And I was so exhausted that I was just like, no, I can't do this. So I have really clear boundaries. If you get an email from me between 9 and 5, it's from my assistant who is helping me, right? So those are some of the things that I've had to do. But I've also had to like sacrifice, like, if it looks like sacrificing social time or making those sacrifices to say, I have to put in the time for my business outside of my 9 to 5 and find that balance. I will also say that, being single and childless also makes it a lot easier to get a lot of shit done and focus on the bag, okay? Because like I don't,
nobody's stressing you out.
No one's stressing me out. I don't have to feed no mouth of my own. So it's like, I think I also acknowledge those as privileges as well, right? Like I make a really comfortable salary. I am single. I don't have children. So, that's something I talk with my grandmother all the time because she's just like, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, well, Granny, like at my age, you already had a child, you had a whole husband. Like I can't imagine having that kind of responsibility and be able to work a 9 to 5 and a side hustle. Shout out the mamas that do it. But I think that also is a reason why I have lots of other time, right? Because after 5, I'm really grateful to work for a job where I can log off and then focus on things that are important to me.
I think when you touch on boundaries, though, it's the same thing on both sides. In the same way, if you got 10 projects at work right now, the thing is like, okay, what is the priority?
Yes.
Like which one has to get done because this senior stakeholder, my skip leader is on this project. So this one goes. And what is the 10th project where it's like, if it happens to get done before the end of the year, great. But if it doesn't, let's make it a 2023, 2024.
Yeah.
Like you have to know the priorities. And I think the
Yes.
thing when you're building a business and working full time is like, you have to treat it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, you could easily want to be the next big blah, blah, blah online and doing all the things. But it's like, okay, what is the plan? How can you treat your business like the company treats the company?
Yes.
And it's like, okay, what are my goals for Q1, for Q2, for Q3? What am I going to work on with the time that you have? And it's dedicating that time. I did the same thing. So when I was building my business in higher ed, before everybody was remote, we were definitely in the office every single day. I used to work in my business like 5 to 7, then get dressed for work. And then when I got home at night, I would do the same thing on the weekends. Yeah. It's like, where are you carving out the time to build your dream until you want to pivot or not? Because some people want to do both. They want to grind out. I don't think there's a wrong way either way.
No, absolutely not.
It's just knowing what you want to do and moving at a pace that works for you.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that, like, when you're building a business and you have a goal of going full time, there's this moment where it becomes not a game anymore. And understanding what that responsibility feels like.
Yeah.
Because there's a moment, I know for me, like the first year I paid taxes on my business, I was like, what you mean? Like, I get refunds. And my accountant's like, no, honey.
More.
So when you want a business, I was like, oh, so this is no longer a game.
Yeah.
And when I first started getting really big clients, where it was like, before the business, like it was fun, but if I got stressed out or burned out or didn't want to do something, I was like, ooh, I'm just going to just take a social media break.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to do it. But when I got to a point in my business where it's like, yeah, there's not really a break. Like, it's like I have deliverables in the same way I have them in my job.
Yeah.
Then it's a different grind, and you have to decide what that looks like so that you don't burn out and you don't get overwhelmed, because you can have 2 full-time jobs. And that's what, for me at the end, which I don't recommend. I don't recommend, like 10 out of 10 was not a good time. I burned the candle at both ends, where I had 2 full-time jobs for a very long time. Yeah. And it was not okay. I remember running to do a speaking engagement one time on a lunch break that I had. Like running uptown, changing my clothes, doing a speaking engagement, coming back, running a meeting. Like, I always did well on both sides because I'm a high achiever, and people had no idea what was happening on both sides. Yeah. But there came a time, and I think I remember at our former employer, I remember I was in the elevator one time. This is when I knew, I was like, okay, I have to do something. I was in the elevator, and I was with my leader and my skip leader. And someone came up to me and were like, oh my God, Kimberly, where are you speaking? Like, what org are you here with today? Like, I didn't know you were speaking. I didn't see anything come out. And I was like, ooh. And my skip leader's like, why are they like, oh my God, like, so Manifest Yourself is here today? Like, this is really exciting. And my skip leader was looking at me like, what the hell is a Manifest Yourself? And I was like, I work here. I actually have a full-time job here. And it's not that I was ashamed, because I wasn't ashamed, because I love my job, but it was a moment of, okay, I need to do something different. Yeah. I didn't like how it felt. Not ashamed, but I was like, this don't feel good. And then that also brought up some conversations. So before I let you go today, I definitely want to talk about that. So when you're building a brand that is visible. Yes. Very public. Especially because you are talking about your salary, talking about work, talking about things that you're doing. I think it's very different if you were like a lifestyle influencer. Yeah. Where you were like decorating your home or like cooking. Fashion. Yeah. Yes. It is aligned to your career. Yeah. How has that been? What boundaries do you set? And how are you dealing? Because I know somebody tried you, because I've been tried. So what's happened?
So let's take a step back. When I started Flynanced, I did not talk about work at all. I did not talk about career at all. I was talking about debt freedom, personal finance, travel hacking. So the worlds were not as colluded, right, as they are now, right? Then what sort of happened at the end of last year is like, I just kind of like put out some content where I was talking about like my salary journey, and it went viral. Everything that I was saying about like... That's
how it always happens. I just put it out there.
I just put it out there. Like I wasn't really thinking intentionally about like, I'm going to like pivot into talking about career or talking about my journey. I put it out there, and it was going viral everywhere. Like people were like resharing it, like recopying it. I couldn't keep up with it. No. And then just like essentially the floodgates opened, right? Yeah. The floodgates opened, where all of these people were wanting to follow me, wanting to work with me. And it just kind of felt like, okay, people are telling me what they want to hear from me. Like as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, right? There might be things that I want to do, but at the end of the day, like my business is going to grow based on the value that people feel like they're getting from me, right? Like, so I had to do some voice of the customer, right? What do people actually care about? They care about the career stuff, right?
Yes.
And I was
Pause 1 second, though.
Yeah.
I also just want to acknowledge how you applied the work that you did in your 9 to 5 to your business.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes, exactly.
I just think it's real because so many people separate it so much. And it's like, that's only going to help you be a stronger entrepreneur.
Yep, absolutely.
These 9 to 5s don't hurt us sometimes. They really help us because you get that experience that so many entrepreneurs don't have. I just had to stop just so people saw that. Like, her work is helping.
No, I definitely appreciate it. Yeah. It's so crazy how, like, I became a product manager and, like, now I'm literally doing that as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, long story short, people are telling me they want to do a career. I'm doubling down on it, and I'm seeing tremendous amount of growth. Opportunities are coming that way, and they haven't really stopped. What started to happen was I was hearing rumblings like at my former employer, not our former employer, but my former employer. I was starting to hear rumblings, and as I was kind of making my transition out, I remember my manager just kind of saying, you know, I'm really happy for you, and I just wish you nothing but success, but there are plenty of people that don't want to see you do well. And I was just like, what do you mean by that? Like, it was also like, just as I kind of looking hindsight, I understood that she had to, you know, be intentional about what she was saying, because now, you know, come to find out, you know, our senior leaders were essentially trying to build a case around that I was essentially doing gross negligence by talking about whatever I was talking about. Granted, I never used employer names. Never talked about the work that I did. I read my employee handbook, right? So I think that's also important. You have to know what your company allows and doesn't allow. Yes. I also had to disclose the fact that I make money through this other avenue outside of work, right? So I crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's. Like, I just had a senior leader that hated on me, right? I guess because she saw my content growing, because she saw that I had a community of people. I don't know. It was very weird. And it's really unfortunate also that she's a Black woman. So we could also talk about that another time. So, you know, that I think really showed me that I have to be really intentional about how I talk about the work that I do, because I am still actively growing in my career, right? So I think for me, it looks like setting boundaries around, although I'm really transparent about the money that I make and have made. You can look me up on LinkedIn and see what did I do, but I don't share a lot about the work that I do. I don't share a lot where you'd be able to say, this is the team that she's on, right? The company I work for is a huge multi-conglomerate. I'm not going to let you know exactly the work that I do, right? Yeah. And again, I disclose when I'm in employers. I disclose in my interview process, right? So I'm not hiding any of the work that I do. A simple Google search, you're going to see everything related to my business, right? So I think that's important. Having that honesty and transparency has been really key. But in terms of setting boundaries, there are just certain topics I'm just not going to talk about in my content, right? And I get asked all the time, right? Yeah. So I think for me, it's looked like, you know, building relationships with other people where I can use affiliates to connect people with the information that they want without me having to kind of be that person that is walking this really delicate line between, you know, oversharing and helping people get that inspiration based on the work that I do.
I love that. I'm so happy you touched on the employee manual, because I think that you have to know for yourself.
Yes.
And if you don't understand, schedule a meeting with your global legal affairs, global corporate counsel, whatever it is. Schedule the meeting to ask what is okay, what is not okay. Yeah. I worked for a company where they would not extend an offer letter until I went through the communications office and legal affairs to make sure I was fully compliant. And I hated it.
That is insane.
It was a lot, but I was in the clear then. And I think another part for me was also knowing my boundaries. So I think in interviews, people would ask, well, how are you managing both? I knew how to explain very clearly what things. I remember one time I explained like what co-schedule was to an employer. Like, because like, you must be using work time. I was like, no. So I actually have a team. I have 3 interns who work with me. Yep. I have co-schedule. So it does look like I'm online, but I am not. Like I've explained all the things, which I think sometimes is way too nuanced. But I would say, don't be afraid. If you really want to do both, like, go ahead. Yeah. Lay it all out. This is how I do things. This is what it is. And also what my boundaries are. I know for me being in career coaching, it's like I never coached anyone who worked for or was affiliated with the university or current employer that I was with. Even like, so when we worked at our former company, people were like, oh my God, I want to work with you as a career coach. Like, we can do a free coffee chat.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for like long-term advice, I'm going to refer you to someone else because I'm not taking you on because I'm respecting my business and I'm not going to help you in the company we work at.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's boundaries. And I think sometimes they just want to hear that you're thinking about it like a company and you're not just out here wilding, because there are some people out here just wilding.
Plenty of people wilding.
And those are the ones who are getting sued, because you have to remember these corporations generally, I know I don't pay my lawyer as much as our former employer paid their legal team or any of these larger conglomerates. So as we are coming to a close, because I get to talk to you all day, like I feel like
this is so great.
We need a part 2. I feel like we need a part 2.
I would love that.
Yes. I have to ask you, because this is the Your Next Move podcast. What is your next move?
Ooh, I love this question. I will say that my next move is stepping more into that CEO role of my company.
CEO.
Yeah. So what that looks like for me is getting really intentional about what are the things that I just like don't love doing in my business that have to get done, right? And how can right? And I'll be looking out for that one, right?
Yes.
So, I'm in a place now where I'm thinking about who are those first people that I hire.
Yeah.
And how can I be intentional about focusing on those income generating activities in my business so that I can afford to bring on the help that I like really do need. So I'm excited. I'm excited to grow a team with Flynanced. I'm excited to bring on other ambitious women to support the mission that I'm doing. And, I'll also put it out there because I'm into manifesting. I am also, manifesting, doing more on-air talent, work. Like I'm excited about that. I want to be on TV. I want to maybe host a podcast like this. Like, you're amazing.
Thank you.
So I'm putting it out there, right? Like that's kind of like what I want my next move to be.
Oh, I love that. And I want to support you. So we got to talk offline.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we got to do the fun stuff. So tell the people, where can we find you? Where can we keep in touch with you? We want to know all the things because our content is bomb, y'all.
Thank you.
So you need to follow, like, subscribe, everything. So where we go?
Yes, of course. So this was Cinneah El-Amin of Flynanced. You can find me on my website, FLYNANCED.com. On Instagram, I'm at fly.nance, FLY.NANCED. Twitter, TikTok, all the others. I'm just Flynanced, one word. Yeah, all of the things. Maybe YouTube next. We'll see. And I'm excited. Yeah, talk to me. Let me know on DMs that you heard me on this podcast, and I would love to hear from you.
I love that. Yay. With that, y'all, thank you.
Thank you. This has been so great. I feel so warm.
Yes, it was a good time.
Yes.
So with that, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this episode. May your next move be your very best move.